go ahead and get the slides going, and then Brent, let me know when we're ready to go live with YouTube.
YouTube is good, Johnell. Thank you.
Okay, we're live. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Community Advisory Group meeting on October 12th. Once again, my name is Johnell, one of your co-facilitators. Our other co-facilitator, Lisa, I think is still working on technology, but Lisa, if you're here, do let me know so we can, actually, here she comes, 1 second here. Good afternoon, Lisa. Afternoon, Lisa. Okay, I think Lisa's still joining. But good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for the Community Advisory Group meeting, October 12th. Once again, my name is Johnell, one of your co-facilitators. We also have our other co-facilitator here as well, Lisa Keohokalole, Schauer. Next slide, please. Just a reminder, closed captions are available in English and in Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window, https://ibr.news/captions. Next slide. Just a reminder as to how you may access closed captions. At the bottom middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen, then click on the CC icon and a separate window with captions will appear. Next slide, please. ASL interpretation, as always, an effort to continue to center equity. There is an ASL interpreter in addition to closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is always visible, please right-click their video and select Spotlight Video. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you will be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will still be able to hear different people speaking, but may not see them. Next slide, please. And just a reminder for webinar participation tips. We again thank you for joining us today. Please join by audio. Please join audio by either phone or computer, but not by both. We encourage panelists to turn on your video. Please keep your audio on mute when not speaking. That helps to reduce the feedback. If you experience technical difficulties, please contact program staff at 360-329-6744. Next slide, please. And as a reminder to our public, for public input instructions, there will be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting today, roughly around 5:45 p.m. Verbal public comment will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during the designated time with the option to turn on your web camera. Please use a link located in the meeting description on the YouTube meeting page or on the IVR CAG meeting web page. Commenters will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. To comment by phone, you may dial 669-900-6833 or 408-638-0968. You'll want to enter meeting ID number 993-5459-6043, as well as a passcode, which is 674942. Please remember to dial *9 to raise your hand. After you are invited to speak, you'll want to dial *6 to unmute yourself. Next slide, please. To submit comment after the meeting, fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CAG Public Comment in the subject line. You'll want to call 360-859-0494 for Washingtonians, as well as 503-897-9218 for Oregonians. Or you may dial the 1-888-503-6735 toll free. And always please state CAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CAG Public Comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. Next slide. And just a reminder, as we have practiced for a number of years now, our meeting space is always for us to put relationships first, for us to keep focused on our common goal, to be mindful of the power dynamics in our virtual room, for us to always create a space for multiple truths and norms, be kind and be brave, practice examining racially biased systems and processes, and then for us to look for learning. Next slide, please. And with that, I am going to, maybe I'll just cover real quickly our agenda. We'll have welcome and updates. We'll receive a meeting overview. You'll have an opportunity of doing a quick check-in. We'll receive a program update by Administrator Johnson. We'll then receive an updated presentation on the Community Benefits Advisory Group. We'll have a robust conversation relative to tolling. You'll hear an update on recent and upcoming community engagement activities. We'll receive public comment, and then we will close. So with that, I will turn it over to our wonderful co-chairs, co-chair Washington and co-chair Valenter. Ed?
Yes, just like to welcome everybody to this. I believe this is our first meeting this year, isn't that correct? Because we didn't meet last month, did we? So would this be considered the first meeting?
Not our first this year, but our first
in the school year. Ed and I both work in higher. So
oh, there you go. Yes.
we have a different version of year.
You have a different year. Yes. Yes.
So I'd like to welcome everybody and a very special, all of the members. I hope that all of you had a wonderful summer and you still have summer today, and hopefully you get it tomorrow and through next week. And very special welcome to Lynn Valenter. I know she has been so very, very busy this summer. And for those of you who don't know what she does, she works out at Reed College. And I tell you, if you work anywhere in higher education, it's a challenging job every single day, and especially with what Lynn does. She's the vice president of finance. And so that's a lot of work for her. So welcome back, Lynn. And it's just a pleasure to see everybody, and wish you a wonderful, wonderful beginning of fall football season, and hope you all enjoy yourself today. I'll turn it over to Lynn for comments now. Lynn?
I just briefly want to acknowledge, but for the few and the proud who went on the tour, this will be twice in 1 week. We also got to see each other face to face, which was a bonus for not only some of the CAG members, but also the staff who set up a lovely tour and really provided great insight. So welcome back to those of you who were with us on the tour, and we're looking forward to the rest of the meeting. It's a robust agenda, so we're excited to get started. Thank you. I think, Greg, do you get to go next?
I think we're going to do a quick
that's right.
open dialogue, but maybe before we do that, Lisa, we'd love to have you welcome everyone as well.
Thank you, Johnell. Apologies for a little bit of a Wi-Fi issue. Just welcome to the CAG, and just want to echo our co-chairs comments regarding the tour. It was great to see everyone. It was our second project tour and an opportunity for us to meet with other members of the advisory groups and to interact with our program staff and ask questions. And it was really worthwhile and meaningful. Appreciate everyone that made the time to come and to find time to be here together in this space. So thank you, everyone, and welcome.
Great. And Lynn, we're hoping maybe you can lead this piece here.
Okay, so if everybody that's a CAG member can recall what comes to mind when you hear the word community, we're gonna, if everybody can raise their hands, and then as we get a chance to speak, we'll put down our hand, and that way we are seamless in terms of calling on our own community. So I'm gonna just lead us off. When I first think about community, I think of people who have a common goal or affinity. I think I first started thinking about it being a physical place, but it's not a physical place. So I'm going to pass it to Irina, if you would go next.
In my mind, community is a safety net, support, and reliable environment. And I'm calling on Brooke.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brooke Pillsbury. I'm with Clark College and I use she, her gender pronouns. And what comes to mind when I hear the word community would be a group of folks coming together towards a common goal or understanding, or I think affinity is a great word, and that it's a group of folks that support one another. So that can come in a variety of different ways. And I will pass it to Tom Hickey.
Hi, Tom Hickey. I am on the CAG to represent the North Portland neighborhoods. And in my role in the neighborhood associations, I think about community a lot. And one of the things that I've gotten involved in, as well as this and the neighborhood associations, is the homelessness crisis, and am profoundly, I don't know profoundly, but certainly very aware, and try to hold myself aware of the fact that there are an infinite number of communities out there that are sort of outside my sphere of influence and my scope of perception. And it's important to me to hold in mind the multitude of communities that I don't see, that I don't know about, and I don't necessarily have any perception of, but that exist nonetheless. So, Darcy.
Hi, everyone. Darcy Hoffman, she, her pronouns. I'm with Workforce Southwest Washington. And I went really literal when I thought about the word community. And first I thought about my own neighborhood, my little city, my work, my running group, and who could leave out other 49ers fans. And I will go to Jarina.
All right. Well, my name is Jarina Hatch. I use she, her pronouns. I don't remember the rest of the questions.
What do you think of when you think of the word community?
Honestly, the thing that comes to mind for me there is that saying, it takes a community to raise a child. And just the fact that raising children now has gotten so challenging, and having a community to support you is imperative.
Perfect. Thank you. Julie Dumbia, might you go next? Julie may have stepped away or have trouble getting off. So I'm going to just ask Michaela if you'll step up.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela Williams. Pronouns are she, hers, and I'm an at-large community member. And for me, community, I kind of thought of the word safety, and how when you're in a community, safety is like a really important part of that. And that's kind of what makes it feel like a community, is it's a place where you feel safe. Oh, and I can pass it off to Martha.
Hi, Martha Wiley, and I am a member at large with a focus on transit. And I think of a community as people with something shared, like a shared past, a shared family unit. But I 100% agree with the safety comment. And I will call on Bill next.
Hi, good to see everybody again. Sorry I missed a couple of meetings there. We had a couple of events going on here. And I understand we're planning another event with the IBR over here at our Owami building coming in first part of November. So looking forward to that. As far as community goes, I'm going to start from the inside out. My little sphere of influence is one part of my community, is the major part of my community, who I can influence and what I can do. A larger community kind of is more like the mission of Owami. One of the sayings we have is everybody's in, nobody's out. So we like to make sure that everybody's involved, that everybody's in, kind of like the CAG is doing right now to help with this bridge project. And of course, I'm a diehard Duck fan, so go Ducks. And let's see, who can I call in? Is Julie, have you been up? Julie Dombia?
Yeah, no, I have not. And I'm having a couple of slow internet issues, so I hope you guys can hear me okay. So I'm in Northeast Portland. And for me, I think community has to do with like engagement and connections with other people. I think whether those connections and engagement is positive or sometimes not so positive. That's kind of what comes to mind for me for community. And I will call on Jana.
Thank you. I'm Jana Jarvis on behalf of the Oregon Trucking Association as a member of this group. There's not much left to say about community at this point, but I do think it's a group of like-minded people with shared goals, common goals, and interests. And I will call on Sherry.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Jana. Sherry Call, I'm President and CEO of the Washington Trucking Association. And I love this question. There's been a lot said about it, but that's one of the major things that I think is my responsibility as an association head is to build community amongst the industry in Washington. That would be the trucking industry. So I think it's just common interests coming together, whether it be cultural or whatever it might be, a broad range of things. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Ryan, might you go next?
Sorry about that, Ryan.
Hey everyone, Ryan Webb. I am the engineering and planning manager for the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. And this bridge is within the ceded lands of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. I guess for community, for me, I guess it's just kind of one word of family would be the one that comes to it. And that family doesn't have to be, blood relatives, doesn't have to be immediate, but it's an extended family, one family that you want to help, you want to support, you want to love, you want to raise up. And so for me, anytime I see community, I think the first word would be family.
Thank you. And I think Ed can maybe finish us off. And if I can ask that the slides get put back up so we move to our next moment. Jana already has gone. Her hand is up, but we've already heard from her.
You want to hear from me?
We do. We are
okay.
waiting with bated breath.
Well, actually, when I think of community, I really think of all of you and the tasks and chores that we have been asked to work with and make some sense out of it and help build a bridge. So this, for me, is a strong example of community. And may I ask Chair Valenter, Lynn, Fabian, have we introduced him yet? Maybe that's coming up later, but has he been introduced?
Great point.
Okay. Can we do that?
We can. Fabian, can you come on screen and do a brief introduction? Because all of us have been in touch or have been the recipient of your emails, but we haven't actually seen you.
Yes, absolutely. And as I wait for my camera to turn on here. There we go. Yeah, hi everyone. I know I met a couple of you at the program tour. I'm Fabian, and I'll be the primary coordinator doing a lot of behind the scenes for CAG. And so I'll be reaching out to you to schedule a one-on-one and get to know you a little bit better and ensure that we have the topics that y'all want to learn about and hear more about in these meetings. So happy to be here and thank you for the welcome.
Thank you so much for everything you do. We couldn't do it without you. Which brings to mind, could you take us to the next slide? So now we get to, I tried to hand it over to Greg earlier, but I was a little too quick off the blocks. To use your metaphor, we were talking about track before we started. So with that, it's an opportunity, which is one of our favorite actually times, is to hear from Greg Johnson, Program Administrator. Greg?
Well, you guys must be awful bored then. Well, it's my pleasure to be here. I want to thank the folks who did go on the tour with us. I hope it was informative and enlightening for the couple of hours that you spent with us. Those things are some of my favorite times to answer questions in the real space of where this project is going to be built. And so I'll take administrators' prerogative and answer. When I think of community, I think of folks who are willing to give of a resource, whether that resource is time, whether it's money, whether it's passion. Those are the things that make a community. And I have to say, I'm a part of this community, but I'm also a part of the Detroit Lions community. So go Lions. All right, next slide, please. So the program is extremely busy. We are still in the environmental phase. We are trading documents back and forth with our federal partners on the draft supplemental environmental document. We are hoping that that document will be ready for release sometime mid-winter. So that's going to be a huge effort, once again, to get all of the federal reviews done and to make sure that we are communicating to the community writ large that this is coming, and they will have a 60-day time period to comment on all aspects of this draft supplemental document. So it is a very large, lengthy document, and the team is working furiously to get it into final shape and have it pass muster from our federal partners for release. So other things that are going on, we are still working on design efforts. Our team is, I keep putting them at a higher level of design than they tell me they're at. So right now, I think we're at about a 10 to 11% design, but more to come. We're hoping when we have our December community advisory group that we will have more visuals for the team for this team to look at and comment on, but those will definitely be ready by the time we go to the draft supplemental release. So other things that are going on, program tours. So the tour that we gave for all of our advisory groups, and it was just yesterday, I think. Time flies. But that's just one of a number of tours that we have been giving. The Washington Transportation Commission visited with us, and that actually was a more of a tour of the existing bridge and the condition that the existing bridge is in. So we got a chance to walk those folks on the bridge and on the sidewalk area up into the operator's house so they could see and feel this bridge in operation. And it's always a interesting reaction that we get to folks once they get into that machine room, and it's vibrating and shaking as those big trucks go underneath. So it's a very interesting part of the bridge tour rather than the program area tour. So we also had the Washington Joint Transportation Commission come down. So chaired by Senator Leas and Representative Phi. And that was once again a great opportunity for the political leadership in the Washington legislature to come down and get a feel for what this project is, what this bridge is. We gave them a full presentation in the morning before they came out on the bridge. So once again, very, very fruitful day. We had the Washington State Public Transportation Conference, who was in Vancouver, staying downtown. They got a tour of the bridge. So just, I don't know the total count on the number of tours we've given, but I'd say over the last 3 years, we're probably getting up towards triple digits. So we also had a congressional roundtable where we talked to members of Congress and who will be instrumental in helping deliver the federal dollars for this project. So that's always a intensive conversation, and a conversation that is to get them aligned on where we're going. We received great support from both congressional delegations to once again provide letters of support for our grant application. And we had the White House infrastructure leader, and his name is escaping me now, but Mitch Landrieu was here in town from Washington, D.C., and we got a chance to sit down. A lot of the local folks here in Vancouver were able to sit down with him, and the bridge was one of the prominent parts of that discussion. So once again, we are on the radar screen in Washington, D.C. You can see the list of presentations that we are continuing to do. We are talking to neighborhood associations, business associations, basically anyone who wants to hear about this bridge. Our team will travel and go and make a presentation to them. So once again, this is all hands on deck, getting folks ready for that public comment period, which we are hoping will be sometime in the February, March timeframe. So with that, I will take any questions that this group may have. So I am not seeing any hands raised. So I will assume that this group is very satisfied, and we will move on to our next presentation, which is about community benefits. So if we could go to the next slide and have Shannon.
I do.
Oh, we do have a question.
Yeah, I did see we have one.
So, Mr. Washington.
Yes. Craig, are you looking at the pictures that we're looking at?
Yes, I am.
Bottom, holding a clipboard, and there's a person to your left in red. Who is that person? Do you remember?
That is State Representative McLean.
Yes, I thought
the Oregon legislature.
Yeah, I thought it was her, and I would like to just say, and I don't, I probably wouldn't be here doing this today had it not been for Representative McLean, because when I was appointed to the Metro Council, she was the council. She was on the Metro Council at that time, and she cast the tie-breaking vote so that I could become Metro Councilor for the district that I represented. I thought that was her. So we're good friends. We go back a couple of days. So yeah.
Well, that is outstanding. And Ed, I tell you, this program, we were successful in getting through the Oregon legislature. That would not have happened without the force of will of Representative McLean. So she is very much a friend to this program. So I agree with you. She is an outstanding person and very much committed.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
All right. Well, why don't we pull up the next slide and have Shannon take over.
Thank you so much. And hi all, Shannon Singleton, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm leading the community benefits work for the Bridge program and taking off my other hats. So I appreciate having the time to have worked more closely with you all. And I'm so pleased to be able to hand that off to Fabian to shepherd forward. But I'll be hopefully seeing you regularly to give these updates. Next slide, please. So the program has started to look at how can we develop benefits for the community and come to some recommendations through this new advisory group. This work is rooted in our equity framework and something you all are familiar with on, both how are we looking at the objectives and tying this to our equity objectives, but also that action piece and engaging with community around this work as we continue to move forward. Next slide. So we have situated the potential community benefits into these categories under the framework: mobility and accessibility, our physical design, the community benefits. There will be workforce and equity and economic opportunity options, as well as our decision-making process, and of course, avoiding further harm. Next slide. So we really wanted to root the work of the Community Benefits Advisory Group, their scope. The first piece of their scope states that they will utilize the values and priorities that you all developed as part of their framework, and ensuring that that is a lens that they're looking at potential community benefits through. You all wrote this. I will not belabor reading the slide, but want to make sure that you all know that we're making those connections for this new advisory group as well. Next slide. So what are community benefits on the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program? So they will be developed with extensive community involvement. We will look at those range of recommendations that benefit the local community and again reflect not only equity framework principles, but also the diverse needs and perspectives of our various communities. This will be a key cornerstone of our work in implementing some of the equity principles. It will be captured in contract specifications, environmental documents, or items will be referred over to the future project labor and/or community workforce agreement tables. And it will be a cooperative commitment between our program partners and other parties. So we have started work with our program partners and will continue to engage and meet with them in the coming months as this work moves forward. Next slide. IBR community benefits will not be a specific agreement just addressing our community benefits. So often you hear the term CBA or community benefits agreement. We are not pursuing that specific document through our work. Again, we'll look to capture this in those other spaces that we mentioned around environmental documents, contract specifications. We also are differentiating some of the community benefits that will not be, it's not the same as the project labor or the community workforce agreement. These will be separate efforts. Next slide, please. So to give a little bit of a high-level overview of that, these are some examples of community benefits like public art, community centers, support for affordable housing development. And then there's clear things that are a part of a project labor agreement or a community workforce agreement. There's this overlap space that you see in this green circle here, where some things could be in a CWA or a PLA, and some things could be in among community benefits. And so we'll be working with the committee and with other folks across the program with our different technical experts to make sure that we're shifting things that should be a part of the PLA or CWA discussions over to those tables and keeping the community benefits advisory group focused really on more of these pieces, like, for example, childcare assistance for workers. Next slide, please. A quick overview of their charter. Next slide. So this is their scope here. Really, it's this piece around mitigation that this really lies in that mitigation of impacts of construction of the mega projects. And it also is important that we're ensuring that this aligns with the community's future vision and is rooted in the historical treatment of equity priority communities, which is why you see us aligning it so specifically with our equity framework. Their scope, again, will be applying the work that you all have already done around values and priorities. They will be advising the program on how to leverage this work of the program and partnerships to achieve the greatest positive impact for our region and the program area. We will also be advising on the establishment of accountability mechanisms for the commitment made in the Community Benefits Advisory Group process. So this group will be providing recommendations to the program that will then move forward from there. There's really four buckets of community benefits. We see the plans and mitigations that may already be included in the program. There's a number of program partner conditions that are also benefits to the community. As I mentioned, we'll do some work with our partners and looking at any potential contributions from partner agencies or leverage opportunities with the program, and then additional benefits that might be identified by either this new advisory group or the larger community, including this group here with CAG or our equity advisory group, in addition to other community engagement efforts. Next slide. So the Community Benefits Advisory Group structure has balanced representation from Oregon and Washington. We are seeking to include representatives from both CAG and EAG. We would really love if folks have questions or are interested in applying, submitting an application. It's a short form that we'd love to just talk about if people have questions and time permitting. And our representation includes program area residents, business owners, folks with housing development expertise, workforce development. We have culturally specific, both community-based organizations and businesses, folks from the disability rights and environmental justice communities, as well as people with parks and recreation experience.
Shannon, I'm not sure if you can see, but you have a question.
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Jana.
Thank you. I have a group of trucking companies that have their terminals located around the Jubitz truck stop. And they have some concerns about access on and off the freeway through some of the changes that are happening with the IBR program. And they have asked to have an opportunity to talk to decision makers around this. Is this, I don't even know what you're calling this committee, CBAG? I mean, is this committee something I should recommend that one of them applies for participation on? And how do I go about doing that? You see where I'm going with this question.
I do, and I would look to Greg for maybe some other options of having that larger conversation. The applications currently are specifically for CAG and EAG. The other members of this advisory group have been appointed.
So you're
Greg,
pulling people for this group from our group and from the equity group? Is that what you're saying? I'm confused. I apologize. I'm confused.
No worries. One member each from CAG and EAG, and there's additional members that have been appointed by the program who fit into some of these different representation categories you see here on this slide.
So that process has already happened, is what you're saying to me?
Yes, except for the CAG and EAG applicant slots.
Thank you.
So Jana, if I can add on to that, our design team will be happy to sit down with folks who have some questions about access and what that will look like in the future. I see Tom has his hand up. We met with Tom, and we are planning another meeting with a couple of the neighborhood groups in that area to talk about what the new potential designs will look like and how folks will be able to access I-5 and the surrounding local streets in that area. So if you can drop me an email of a contact person, I'd be more than happy to work with you. And it probably fits into the conversation, Tom, that we've been having in that area. But
I appreciate that. I reached out to Ray and had this conversation with him. So I'll just follow up with both of you.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I might, Gianna, I also wonder if this also brought up some of the members of the community working groups that we had involved. And I'm curious if maybe there might be some folks that were initially involved in those groups that we may want to also ensure are involved in understanding what's happening right now and how to access our community engagement team. So it might be a follow-up, because I know that we did have folks from Jubits engaged in our community working group when we stood those up, gosh, a year and a half ago. And your involvement in helping to connect the program with those folks was pretty instrumental. So that would be another follow-up we could look at as well.
I know that there was a separate meeting that I wasn't involved with, that a group of them came together, and they have reached out to me and asked me to set up a follow-up meeting. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, but I'll do that. I won't take any more time. I just wondered if, I thought you were looking for participation on this group. And so I was going to suggest to them that they volunteer someone, but now I understand what we're doing. Thank you.
So Tom?
Yeah, thanks. Just as a quick aside to Jana, I do want to tell you that the local neighborhoods of Bridgeton and East Columbia are very aware that we need to kind of get on the same page with the trucking industry to kind of make our positions work together when we talk to the IBR. So we would very much like to have an opportunity to sit down with your people around Jubits and have that conversation. But the question that I had was for Shannon, and the question was that I thought you had a representation of the CAG on your committee already in, I think Marcus Mundy is a CAG member. Otherwise, I'd be happy to fill out a form.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for highlighting that. I don't want to, not in an effort to put Marcus out there on Front Street, but I did forget that he was a member of the CAG. So I will definitely do some follow-up and make sure, but we want to absolutely have, and he's not currently filling the CAG seat. He is filling a culturally specific community-based organization or business seat. So we can, if you're interested, I can reach out to you. I know I've got your contact info.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks. Next slide. So just to give a visual representation, you'll see the Community Benefits Advisory Group is in here in the same bucket with our Equity Advisory Group and you all with CAG. It's really adding another advisory group to this level with a much more specific focus. But they're the same sorts of processes, and again, those advisory functions and recommendations going up to the program, and the decision of our Administrator Johnson of what, if anything, is going over to the ESG as well. Next slide, please. So if there's time permitting, we are just looking for some feedback if there's particular ways that you all would like to engage with the Community Benefits Advisory Group. And really, how can we best engage the community around this work to ensure that we're creating meaningful impact?
Yes, and we have time.
I will pause there.
Yeah, so we'd love to hear any thoughts from members of the CAG. We have kind of two prompts. What are ways you would like to engage with Community Benefits Advisory Group, and how can the IBR program best engage the community around the work of the Community Benefits Advisory Group to create a meaningful impact?
So Shannon, I might start because I don't see anybody else's hand up, but what strikes me is that it's really about mitigation. And so certainly that is something that interests this group, but not with the same level of focus, I think. And so I'm wondering if we couldn't have just a brief report out or maybe one slide that just highlights what is it that they're considering and any recommendations, or like, we don't need to know how the sausage is made, but knowing what they're focusing on and then where they end up, I think would be helpful. And again, if we end up with a CAG member, maybe that person can do that, or maybe that would be your role as convener to provide some consistency. But I guess that's what I was thinking, but I'm looking for other input. Oh, Tom, your hand is up again.
As usual, I would like to see some kind of dynamic roundtable conversations between the two committees to kind of brainstorm and throw out ideas between the two groups, and certainly with the IBR there, but not necessarily like under the IBR guidance and management, but a little more free form where people within the two committees can do the brainstorming. So that's kind of where that's my suggestion.
Her thoughts? Let's see. Yes, Michaela, and then Martha.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Tom was saying, I really like that idea of being able to, especially because we are utilizing the same kind of core values. I think that it would be really beneficial to hear, because I think that we've had a lot of time to discuss what different values are important to us as CAG. And I think it would be really beneficial to hear from that group kind of what from the values that we've set out as a CAG to be important to the program, kind of what their feedback is on those values, and maybe they have different ones. And I think that that would be just very beneficial to hear about, just to kind of keep the conversation rolling around, different needs within the community.
Thank you for that. Martha?
Yeah, I don't know why I had limited CBAG in my head to like artistic and recreational benefits. But there are obviously a ton of other benefits that you guys will be addressing. And I want to make sure that we at the CAG hear about all that stuff. So I would strongly support Lynn's suggestion about having a presentation every meeting about what they're doing at the other group. And also, that's what I'd like.
Great, thank you. And Shannon covered this a little bit. The thought is to have the representative from CAG to serve as that liaison to this body to give you all a firsthand account as to what's being discussed at each meeting, similar as to how both co-chair Valenter and Washington serves as that a liaison to the executive steering group, as well as have ongoing conversation with CAG along the trajectory of the process. So CAG will be very much involved along the way. So thank you for pointing that out. Irina?
I volunteered my candidacy to be the connection between the new group and our group, but the only time that was given to me was 9 to 11 daytime, and I am working, so it's kind of like I cannot commit to these hours. So that's why I removed my candidacy. That just was my explanation.
Thanks, Irina. I really appreciate that. And I know that Sam, was also in that same boat, that the meeting time was not really workable. So I do apologize. I should have said that during the presentation, but the meeting time it's the fourth Thursday of every month from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m.
And I see Bill, your hand is up.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, and maybe I've missed a couple of meetings where you may have brought a little of this up, but as I read this and look at the things, it seems like it's a duplicate of what we were originally charged to be doing along the way. I'm not sure why there needs to be another committee to do what we've and where we've gotten to today with the information. And maybe it's just my naivety to the whole discussion of what the CBAG, as they call it, or the CAG was supposed to do. It just looks like something that is the same as what we've been working on to find till now. So maybe that kind of reporting back and forth will help clarify that for us when I go back talking to my people.
So if I could jump in, so Bill, we heard that concern. This group is actually going to be digging in very much deeper on some specific items, and we were presented with the choice of trying to put this into the community advisory group charge, but we felt that this is so specific that having a group that's singularly focused on this issue, and once they have made their recommendations, that group will more than likely go away, where the community advisory group will be continued on through construction, and also be ensuring that things that are agreed to under this get implemented appropriately. So this will be we didn't want to call it a subcommittee of this group, but this is a specific task that we were looking for this group to accomplish.
And we probably have time for one more. Kayla?
Yeah, sorry, Greg, just one more question. So when we talk about, like, I guess I'm still looking over some of like the slides and what have you, but when we're talking about the specific task, what is that task exactly? That might be an existential question.
So some members of this group will be folks, like we have the co-conveners of this group are actually affiliated with the City of Portland and the City of Vancouver. And we also have other members of the group that will be bringing resources to the table and who will be able to give guidance on different aspects of certain benefits discussions. So we have, once again, some folks, if we have vacant land, we have some folks who are, once again, versed in parks and versed in housing, affordable housing issues. So those folks are specifically brought on this panel to dive into those things. Folks will be talking about the impacts on neighborhoods in the footprint of the construction, and how we will mitigate for noise, dust, and things of that nature. So once again, a very specific charge, but this group will be instrumental in making sure that you are carrying the broader message of the community and making sure that these things are being covered by the Community Benefits Advisory Group.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. And so more to come. Thank you all for that robust discussion. We'd like to now welcome Megan Hodges to kick off the conversation relative to tolling update.
Hi, everyone. I guess I didn't test out my technology. It's in a different space. I guess so happy to be here. I have watched probably 90% of your meetings. I just haven't attended one of them yet. So I'm Megan Hodges. I'm the Community and Government Relations Manager. I am here to talk about a topic that everybody loves and has almost no issues with, which is tolling. I know that you will have a lot of questions, and in this case, I'm going to ask you to hold them until the end because we've practiced this presentation enough that we try to anticipate what questions you will ask. It just may take a slide or two for me to get to them. So I am going to get going so that we can leave plenty of time for questions at the end. What I will also say is that this is not the only time we're going to be here on this topic. Which is why we have some of the questions, or one of the questions we've outlined at the end. We will just barely skim the surface. This is like learning a whole new, I guess, issue area as it relates to transportation. So it may take a few presentations to kind of show you all of the future steps involved with tolling. So again, we'll skim the surface and we promise to come back with more information as we have good stuff to share. So I'm going to start out kind of hitting this at a high level, kind of the national picture a little bit. I know that in the Northwest, or I guess maybe not in all of the Northwest, in parts of the Northwest, tolling is not something that we are as used to as they are as folks on the East Coast. So on this slide, we've kind of set up some of the background around why tolling is being implemented more across the United States. So people hear about these topics as it relates to funding transportation generally. So the federal gas tax has not been raised in a long time. And then state gas tax can't keep pace with the need in terms of maintenance across states. Construction costs are increasing. That's happening on projects nationwide. There is, while there is federal funding, and we are very competitive for that on IBR, federal funding can't solve everything, neither can state funding. And then congestion and population growth is contributing to more congestion. So these are all issues that tolling can help address. And while not all of it applies to IBR, I will get into specifically why we're looking at this, why this is a part of the IBR program. Tolling can help create a sustainable funding mechanism to keep the system maintained, and it helps keep travelers moving and reduces congestion. So next slide. And this plays right into, here is a map of the whole United States. You don't necessarily need to pay attention to the hash marks and the different colors. The key is the gray states are the only ones remaining in the United States that do not use tolling on some facility within that state. So you can see that it's a lot more common on the East Coast. In the center of the United States, it's slightly less common. But the map, it continues to fill up, and I'm sure that if I Googled it, I could find a newspaper article about some other state starting to toll that doesn't today. So I think this is just trying to give you a picture. We realize that tolling is not super popular, but potholes and 106-year-old bridges also aren't super popular. So it's one of the reasons why we look at tolling as a funding mechanism in addition to other ones. Next slide. And then I guess on that note, in terms of states implementing new tolls, I said that if I Googled it, I could probably find an article about a state that is implementing tolls. Guess what? Some of you live in one, and we are right next to the state of Oregon, which is has been working on a new toll program. Right now in Oregon, there are some local facilities that have tolls, like bi-state border bridges that have them. But the state highways do not yet have tolling in the state of Oregon. You guys probably know that in Puget Sound in Washington, the tolling has existed for 20 plus years up north. So I think there's sometimes some confusion about will 205 be tolled? How is IBR different or the same as the Oregon toll program? So I wanted to cover that a little bit. The IBR program will not be tolling the 205 bridge, the Glenn Jackson Bridge. We are only looking to toll on the I-5 bridge to fund construction. But Oregon is implementing tolls. They're in the process, like the environmental process for implementing tolls on other facilities. The first one they're looking at is the 205, is along 205 at the Abernathy Bridge down in the corner in yellow. And then they're studying implementing tolls on I-5 and 205. Your next question is going to be where on I-5 and 205. And like it says in that bullet point there, they have not determined exactly where those tolls will be, where they will start, where they will end, or how much it will cost. They are looking at tolling kind of just on 205. They're looking to toll just across the river. So not on the Glen Jackson Bridge itself, but pretty close to the border. So it could end up feeling like a toll on the bridge. But again, the limits haven't been determined and kind of the start point hasn't been determined. But I'll circle back to the first point, which is IBR is not going to toll the 205 bridge. And so why are they looking at tolling? They have projects that they need to fund, and it will help improve the regional system. So kind of some of the same reasons that IBR is looking at tolling. The difference is that the tolling along I-5 and 205, which is called the Regional Mobility Pricing Project, isn't tied to a specific project. It's tied to just funding transportation generally. And one other key thing to note is that because that is run by ODOT and the IBR program is made up of both WashDOT and ODOT, the goal in the end and what we are committed to is when you drive across the bridge and go into the other facilities in Oregon that are tolled, you won't notice a difference between which toll is IBR and which toll is Oregon, right? We want to make sure that the drivers don't have multiple bills that come into their house that they have to pay. So we are working very closely together to make sure that we are well aligned so that the customer doesn't notice a difference when they are on the IBR toll point or on the rest of the Oregon facility. Next slide. So this is a different picture or a different framing of funding for the IBR program. So we have shown you our little complicated detailed table a number of times. But in looking at tolling, we've kind of reframed it into a pie graph so that you can see, yes, we are tolling, but that is not the only piece of the funding pie. It is one piece, it is an important piece, but it is one among many. We have multiple funding sources that we're looking at, but it is an important one to make sure that we can get a construction loan for the tolling. This is one of the complicated pieces. Tolling can help pay for construction kind of as you go along, but what we would plan to do is get a construction loan, and tolling would be kind of what we use to repay that. So that sub bullet there where it says bridge tolls will help pay for a new bridge and its continued operations and maintenance through the duration of the construction loan. That is why we mention a construction loan, is that we won't be paying for construction every time somebody pays a toll. We will have received a loan from a company and we will use tolling to pay it back. And so I think another key piece of this is something that we're trying to emphasize lately, the yellow, green, and dark blue pieces, the legislation that we need for those is in place. So the last piece of the puzzle is this federal funding that we are continuing to pursue right now. So tolling is a key piece that makes us, tolling alongside those state contributions makes us competitive for those federal funds coming to the region. Next slide. So another comment we get a lot, and this is why I said we're holding questions, is, are you really going to make me stop at a toll booth to pay a toll? No, we won't. This is a toll facility up in Puget Sound, and you can barely see it, but if you look kind of the metal bars underneath that bridge, there's like little rectangles, and those are cameras that read either the license plate or kind of read the sensor in a transponder on the vehicle windows or on the vehicle license plate. So tolling is electronic. You go online to pay your bill, or it charges a credit card that's online. You can see the sign there that communicates what the rate is. You do not have to stop at a toll booth. I know some of the facilities on the East Coast, they have two options, either a toll booth or electronic payment. In Puget Sound and what the Oregon program is pursuing is all electronic tolling. One other piece of, I guess, context of some people worry, am I going to know how much it's going to cost to cross the bridge? So for IBR, while I'll get into this in a little bit later, We are assuming variable rate tolling. So that means that during the overnight, when there's the least amount of vehicles on the roadway, that is anticipated to be a lower toll. The peak time periods during the day where most of the cars are going through, that is anticipated to be a higher toll. And that kind of helps manage some of the congestion, and it encourages people to use different routes during different times, or to stay on one side of the river so that the facility stays more open for travelers that do need to get to their jobs. The timeline for tolling, when will it start? So we anticipate that tolling on the bridge wouldn't happen until construction on the river, until after or when construction in the river is starting. So that's supposed to start in late 2025, early 2026, and we don't anticipate tolling starting until the spring of 2026. So that means that people drive across the bridge, and while paying a toll may not be fun, you can at least see what your toll is going toward, which is the construction that will be in the river. And so we are planning to toll the existing bridge so that we can make sure that we are getting revenue to fund construction, even during that time, once construction starts. And then when a new bridge opens, then the tolling would permanently shift over to the new bridge. Next slide. And so hopefully most of us who have been following along IBR forever understand why we need tolling, and I tried to already hit it a little bit. Without tolling, we could not fund the program. We could not fund the overall program. So it's one piece of the puzzle, but it comes with more benefits than that, right? If you think about what we get by building IBR, all of those things tolling helps fund, and it also helps address congestion. So you, with transit and the bike and pedestrian improvements and the safety improvements on the roadway in terms of a safety shoulder, auxiliary lane, the interchange improvements, all of those things tolling helps fund. And then the variable rate tolling that I mentioned, that is one, it helps shift trips away from the busiest times of day, or because we are building transit, some folks may choose not to pay a toll, and instead they get on light rail, or they get on express bus on shoulder, or they carpool, or they ride their bike across the bridge. With our multimodal improvements plus tolling, we also help improve safety. There's less congestion and more reliability on the roadway. And then it also helps address state climate goals. So reducing that congestion helps reduce the number of idling vehicles, and that reduces the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. So for us, it's not just tolling that's doing those things, because we have so many other improvements that we're making at the same time with other modes of transportation, safety improvements, freeway operations. All of those things combined help reduce congestion and help chip away at each of these things: safety, reliability, and state climate goals. Next slide. So now we get to who makes the decision and how do I change the outcome? So this is another thing that you're probably all used to hearing on IBR. It is not just all of you in this room. It is not just the DOTs. So with tolling, there's actually multiple decision makers and multiple kind of responsibility points. So the legislatures of each state, they both have a key role in this. And the transportation commissions with tolling, they have also a key role in this. So Oregon, the Washington legislature, we've already said this, they authorized tolling this year. So without them, tolling would not be an option, and building the bridge would not be an option. The Oregon legislature has also authorized tolling on the facility. The transportation commissions, they are a little bit different in each state. In Washington, I think they are an appointed body in each state, and their role is to set toll rates and policies. So IBR will study a number of toll rates, and we're already in the process of doing that, and we will look at different options for tolling. But at the end of the day, it is the transportation commissions that will decide whether it's $3.50 when you cross the river or $1.50 when you cross the river. but they have a lot of things that they're considering and identifying what that price is. And one of the main ones is ensuring that we have enough funding to construct the bridge. In Oregon, the commission also determines how toll revenue is spent. In Washington, it's the legislature that determines that. So it says you must fund the following things first, or here is the order in which you can spend this funding. And then last is the Departments of Transportation. So they are the ones that manage the toll accounts and help send the bills out and get the bills paid. And they manage the actual equipment on the bridge to assess the toll. And they're the ones with the call center when you have questions about your bill or don't know what to do or where the bill came from. They're responsible for implementing it on the state highway. Next slide. So for IBR, as is always the case, it gets a lot more complicated when it comes to two states. So we have the Oregon Transportation Commission, the Washington Transportation Commission, and they will jointly set rates for IBR. So during the Columbia River Crossing project, what that looked like was they set up a subcommittee with a few members from each commission, and then they worked together to dive deep into the details and then recommend rates back to the full state transportation commissions. We have a few more steps in the process before we determine if that's exactly what will happen for IBR, but it's anticipated that it would be similar. And then a logical next question is, what qualifies as a toll policy? So here you can see in italics what the actual specifics of what they will set will be. So what time of day a different toll would be charged, how much more a semi has to pay versus a regular vehicle. Will the toll rates increase by 2% every year, or will it stay static until they decide to raise the rate? Will there be a low-income toll program? Will tribes get an exemption? Will emergency vehicles get an exemption? Will public transit or van pools or other things have a discount or an exemption? And so one of the reasons we haven't come to talk to you guys about tolling yet is we're fairly early in the process around coordinating on those topics. Toll rates and those other policies won't be put in place until about 6 to 8 months before tolling begins. And if you remember from one of the previous slides, we said that would happen in about spring of 2026. So we have 2-ish years until those policies and rates would be set in place by the two commissions. Next slide. Engagement and input. So you guys are going to say, when is it our chance to weigh in on that? And what I would say is that we have to work with the staff and commissioners at the Transportation Commission to determine how they want to incorporate the existing kind of bodies that we've put in place for IBR. So we've had initial discussions about that, and it seems like a path that will be considered to make sure that we are going to these groups that we have set up to give specific feedback about all things that relate to IBR. So that is a likelihood. We, again, have more conversations that we need to have with them before that's decided. They both have existing commissions and public meetings that happen every 1 to 2 months, and people call in and provide public comment there also. So I think it's a question of what combination we do. Do we go back to their meetings and the audience that they have, or do we keep it here? And it may be a combination of both. And then this is a little bit more information on some of the discounts and exemptions that we get asked about most often. You may have read about this in the newspaper. Oregon is planning to implement a low-income toll program on their facilities. The legislature has required that they look at implementing that. In Washington, they have looked at the possibility of it and they've done a study, but they have not received the funding to be able to implement it. So it exists in one state, but not in the other. And it's kind of the same thing as it relates to tribes. There is a different policy in each state that is either being considered or exists now. And so IBR, we will get each of those decision makers into a room and try to identify what the middle path is for IBR, or if they want to adopt something that exists in one or the other state. Next slide. which this might be the last one. So now that I talked a lot and tried to make it a little bit funny along the way, we will open it up for questions. So just a general, what questions do you have? And then what kinds of things are you curious about? What did I not cover? What should we come back and tell you more about when I am lucky enough to come again? Or maybe I'll volunteer one of my teammates to present to you next time if your questions are too hard.
Ooh, Megan, the hands like flew up, which you knew you were ready for. I saw Bill's hand just like right away go up, and then he put it back down, and then Tom's hand went up. So maybe Bill, are you
Thank you.
ready?
This will be a quick question, and it's probably one I shouldn't be asking devil's advocate question. What about tolling for bicycles, rollers, walkers, that kind of thing? Because there is a big effort in this bridge that there's going to be, separate lanes and separated lanes, et cetera, for those people to get across the bridge. I probably shouldn't ask the question, but
that's okay. Maybe I should flip it back to the bikers and walkers in this group and see what their opinion is on your question. I won't do that. I will say I did just learn that they did charge walkers and bikers a toll when the bridges were originally built. Both spans did have a toll when they opened. I will add also they charged for cows crossing the original bridge also, and they charged per head. We are not planning to do that. What I would say to that though, Bill, is we don't, and this is where we get complicated again, we do not decide if what vehicle types are tolled, meaning the transportation commissions could choose to assess a toll on bikes and pedestrians. But I will follow that up to say in Washington, they have not done that on any other facility. So I wouldn't anticipate that they would on this facility. And as far as I'm aware, Oregon is not looking at that. I think there's an effort to reduce the number of cars on the road in some of these other facilities. There's a lot of congestion. And if you are then asking those alternate modes of transportation to pay a toll, then you're kind of pushing people out of that option also. So it's possible the commissions could decide to do that. Based on precedent, I would say it's not likely.
So I kind of had the same question, but as related to light rail, whether the light rail passenger ticket fees would go up for the TriMet to absorb some of the costs of the bridge.
And so I would provide a similar response probably. I think folks that ride light rail would pay a fee already to ride. I would not, and funding of construction does come with its own grant. There is a grant that we are eligible for to fund the majority of light rail. So in terms of funding construction, there is a source that is specifically tied to transit that we are well positioned to compete for. In terms of, I guess, ongoing costs, when folks are already paying to ride transit, I would not anticipate that they would increase it as a toll. I don't actually know if the transportation commissions have authority to do that, but I have not heard of that happening on other facilities. So I would not anticipate that being the case. But the transportation commissions could decide to.
Thank you.
Irina and then Robin.
So my question is like, are the tolls are going to be set in place or they are going to be dynamic and changeable? So I'm just imagining fantastic scenario that all truckers decide to go at night when there is no low traffic on the bridge. Are we going to change the tolls then or not?
So the answer is kind of both. So what we are anticipating, which there's a few steps that still would need to happen before this is in place. But what we are assuming based on the type of facility that we are and what we're looking to fund and what the level of congestion is, we are assuming that the tolls would be variable. So it would not be, $2 at every hour of the day. It would be a lower toll at night or during lower traffic times, and then a higher toll during peak traffic times. But it would be on a set schedule. So when you walk out the door, based on the time of day, what toll rate you will pay. So it's not going to be if suddenly, you know, a concert lets out and 1,000 people get on the roadway and it gets congested, it's not going to, the toll is not going to increase, you know, $3 at that time period when the concert lets out. It will change based on time of day, but it will be on a set schedule.
Robin?
Yes, thank you. I've asked this question before, but I've had conversations with individuals on both sides of the river regarding the 205 bridge and the potential traffic calamities that could happen if the I-5 bridge is tolled and the 205 bridge is not tolled. Is there, I know it's not part of our project, but is there any kind of coordinated discussion going on? Because that has some serious consequences on that side of the community.
So there have been a few different kind of analysis or traffic modeling that has been done to see what happens if you put a toll on I-5, but you don't put one on 205, or if you put a toll on I-5, but implement the toll as part of the Oregon toll program a little bit further south. So what I would say is there would be some folks that would say, I don't want to pay a toll, I will go over to 205. I can't give you an exact percentage because we don't have like it updated for, you know, the year 2035 or whatever, but it is a fairly low percentage. And the reason for that is we shared this piece of data probably, I don't know, it's probably been a year now, but when we look at the vehicles that enter and exit I-5, the vast majority of them need to be on I-5 and within our program area. So over 70% or about 70% of the vehicles that travel on I-5, they enter and or exit within the 5 miles of our program area. So that means that every car that crosses the bridge, 70% of them either got on or is getting off or is getting on and off just within our 5 miles. So I know if you're coming from downtown Vancouver and you just need to go to North Portland, you're not going to route all the way over to 205, sit on traffic on I-84, and then get back on I-5 to get to downtown Portland, right? That's not a logical kind of value proposition, right? You're not going to want to drive that far to avoid a toll. But also, even some folks that in the modeling, at least, we project would route to 205. Once they see how much better I-5 gets with our improvements, even and with the toll, it kind of draws them back because they know that they can get there in 10 minutes or whatever the time period is, depending on what the start and end point is. So it brings them back to I-5, which is where they originally wanted to be anyway.
Darcy?
I appreciate it. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Robin, did you have a follow-up?
Well, I just said I appreciate the data. I would question it, but that can be for a future conversation.
I'll follow up on that briefly.
I was gonna.
I will. That 70% number that I gave, that is based on actuals. That's not projected. The number of cars that would route to a different facility, that one is projected. We don't know that for sure because there's no toll on I-5. What I would say also though is one other piece that I haven't really mentioned is there are a number of trips, not all of them, that they don't need to cross the river, right? They can stay on the Vancouver side or on the Portland side to meet whatever need they were going to cross the river for. And I don't want to, I live in Vancouver, by the way. So I will say this with a little bit of sarcasm. Some people do cross the river just to shop tax-free. They may look at that differently once there is a toll on the facility, and they may decide to go to Target or Costco in Vancouver. So there are a lot of trips across the bridge that people don't need to make it. And so they may modify their trip and go to a different location or go during a different time of day. And that reduces the traffic on I-5, which then frees it up for the other people who want to get to their destination quickly. So
I probably agree with that after construction, but I would say during construction, all you have to do is have one accident on the other side of I-5 and you watch all the traffic that diverts over to 205 and the traffic backup that happens at 205. Every time that happens, That's what would cause me to argue a bit with your
Yeah.
your data.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to get this built. I agree with you.
All right, Darcy.
Thank you for your presentation. That was really helpful. I think you started to answer my question during the presentation, and maybe I just didn't fully hear your answer, but you had said something along the lines of, okay, this is great. And I know your next question is going to be, you know, what can I do as a CAG member to weigh in or participate in this conversation more around tolling? Could you re-answer that for me again? Will we have the opportunity to give feedback on behalf of the communities that we represent?
Yeah, so the reason you probably didn't hear it is because it was kind of a fluffy answer. I don't know what the right word is. So what I would say is the one piece that is kind of a given at this point is tolling is needed to fund the bridge. That is, we don't have enough sources that we can look at. And so I will get to your answer. I'm gonna add a little context first. One thing that I know that some folks like to say is, I don't want to toll at all. There must be another way for you to fund this. And if there was, we would be looking at that, but there just aren't enough sources of funding for a major transportation project. Tolling is a key piece of our financial plan and helps us be competitive for those other federal sources. So I don't want to give the impression that all of this any feedback that we get is going to necessarily change the outcome. We are assuming that tolls are necessary. Quite a few big things would need to change for us not to rely on tolling for such a big project that's going to bring so many improvements to the region. But secondary to that, the pieces that you can weigh in on, which I shared on the one slide about the transportation commissions, they are public bodies that have public meetings every 1 to 2 months. And so I would say at the very least, there will be a huge public input layer as they develop those rates and policies. What is not clear yet and is work ahead of us is to work with them on how they want to use IBR's existing advisory bodies and existing, I guess, channels that have been put in place to get input as those are developed. So I think most likely it will be a combination of both, but I can't tell you that we are going to come back to you in 1 year and give you and have you weigh in on toll rate, right? So it's still a conversation with the staff of the commission.
Thank you.
Martha.
Yeah, so I have two things. One is somebody was talking about tolling for transit. And I, as a paratransit rider in Clark County, can testify personally that we already pay a toll to cross that bridge. It cost me a small but still noticeable fee, $1.50, to cross the bridge into Oregon using C-Tran paratransit. So I don't know what you thought. I mean, I know it's not your decision about, because this is coming from the state. I get that. But just bear that in mind. That's all. And the second thing is, I am really concerned about tolling for low-income people, because these are the people who have the least flexibility in terms of changing their time of travel. So I know this is just, you just briefly addressed it, but it is very, very important to figure out a way to allow people who are the least capable of handling it to get across the bridge. That's all.
Thank you.
Jana, and then Bill.
Thank you. I just want to add a comment to a statement I think Irina made early in the comments section about variable rate tolling and the concept that at different times of day, the tolls have different fees, and that obviously the premise behind that strategy is to try to induce some people to use the facility at times when it costs less to cross it. And the inference was then that all the trucks would use the bridge late at night. And I just want to inform all of the committee members here that trucks are on the bridge when they have to be, not when they want to be. I mean, they typically have delivery appointments or pickup points or whatever, and they are not in the rush of traffic because they want to be there. It makes them far less efficient to have to sit in traffic. So while there may be some possibility for you and I to adjust our schedules, they have a lot less flexibility to do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Jana. All right, Bill, we started with you. We're going to wrap up with you as our last commenter.
Going to end with me. Sorry about that. I just have a quick question. Well, we have been talking about this planning for this bridge. It's supposed to be lasting for 100 years. Is tolling being considered in that 100-year time frame, or is it considered a 25 years, 50 years, or is there been any discussion to that effect?
I never get through a tolling presentation without that question, but it was not in my slides, so thank you. And I probably won't give you a quite satisfactory response. So just as we don't determine if we have the authority to toll the bridge, we also don't decide when the toll ends. If the toll will end or when it will end, it would be up to the decision makers in each state kind of coming together to make that decision. What I will say is, and it could honestly go either way. I think for the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, which is one up in Puget Sound, that does have an end point that I think is somewhere on the horizon. Other facilities in Washington, the toll does last forever. So what I would say though is we do know based on other bridges or projects that have been funded that a loan for construction would last somewhere between 30 to 40 years. So what I can tell you is that tolling will be there for at least 30 to 40 years. And then after that, it's up to the policymakers to decide if it ends. So I was just talking to a colleague, and I will probably just be retiring or will have just retired around that time. So I may not even be here to see if it ends.
Thank you.
All right, Jana's got one more, and then we're going to move on to our next topic.
Well, I guess that just highlights the point that there's all different kinds of tolling. Tolling is not just one concept. So are we going to do construction-based tolling, which says that when you've paid the project off, the tolls go away? Are we going to do variable rate or congestion pricing that says the primary purpose of this is to control the traffic flow? That's a policy discussion. And I think initially from my involvement in this discussion around the bridge, the first order of business is to get the construction tolling underway so we can fund the bridge.
Right.
Whether that carries over into some kind of ongoing tolling is for future legislatures to decide.
Right. And that's what I will say. The reason we are considering a toll for IBR is because we need multiple sources to fund it. Putting any toll on the facility, regardless of the amount, does address congestion and reliability. Just by putting any toll there, whether it's low, medium, high, or right in the middle, just putting it there does result in fewer cars going across the facility for folks that have the option. But for IBR, the toll is for construction.
Okay. This is a great presentation. I learned something new today about charging per head for cows across the original bridge. So you did make it fun, and I hope everybody learned something new. So thank you, Megan. And this won't be the first time that we talk about tolling. So appreciate the presentation. And we have Salome up next with a community engagement update.
Good evening, everyone. Salome here. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the community engagement team lead for the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. It's good to see you all again. I know the last time I was in front of you was near the beginning of summer. And I'm glad to give you a community engagement update. So we wanted to make sure that we recapped our summer of activities with you all. So during the summer of 2023, we tabled at 18 events total, split evenly between Oregon and Washington. We engage with more than 1,200 individuals at a diverse range of events. Obviously, that number is a very conservative estimate because there are times where our table got flooded with crowds of people and we couldn't count them all. But we did our best to count as many as we could. We went to about 50% of the events we went to were equity priority community centered events. These were events that were specifically in name for an equity priority community. And here on this slide, you will see a list of different things that we've heard while out and about in these events and tabling, and then also to images from events that we went to. Some of these comments, as you can see here, most of them are relatively positive. We did engage folks quite a bit around different opportunities or other opportunities to engage the program, such as our office hours and our mini grants, which we'll talk about more later. But as you can see, most of the folks were just happy that we were out in the public and able to provide information, and they were able to ask questions and learn more about the program. So one of the things that we have launched in the program is our community-based miniature grants. These are small scale, low barrier grants that we award to community-based organizations who do work within the community, specifically with folks who belong to equity priority communities. We did a round of these grants back in 2021, and we're doing our second round this year. Over the summer, we had the application open from August 10th to September 10th, and we were able to collect over 40 applications in interest. And we have awarded 8 organizations to work with us, totaling in $50,000 awarded to our local nonprofits. And so with this work, they will work to distribute information related to the IBR program, co-host listening sessions and community forums and briefings with IBR staff, as well as promote IBR events and meetings on their digital and social channels. All 8 of these organizations operate as or are fiscally sponsored by a 501c3 and work with the organization. We will work with the organizations to help prepare and get information to our equity priority communities to help us with the release of the draft supplemental environmental impact statement this winter. Next slide, please. Oh, well, let's go back a slide. So that is my update. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Lynn's ready. Oh, and Darcy then next.
Thank you. For the previous round of CBO mini grants, do we have data on how many contacts we got, how many, individual people, just metrics? Because it seems like a really cost-efficient way to get the word out, as it were, while we're also supporting our community, which is how we kick this off. But anyway, any accountability data you can share?
Yes. So that's an amazing question that has a lot of different answers, but yes, I do have metrics I can share with you all. So our last round of engagement, we had 11 different organizations that we worked with. They provided 4 listening sessions. And so a lot of them paired off, obviously. And with those listening sessions, we averaged about 74 participants per session. And so by the time it was all done, we were over 350 participants in those 4 sessions, like somewhere around 370-ish. And it was really great participation because 92% of the participants who came to those sessions had not been to an IBR session before. And so we had a lot of new engagement, and a good majority, I want to say it was around 70% of the people that came were folks who identified with multiple equity priority communities. And so we call that engaging with folks who live in the intersection, which is really difficult to do without intentional outreach and intentional support to get those folks to be involved. And so you are right, it is a very effective way of reaching out to our equity priority communities. But we also saw benefits for the CBOs as well. Some reported getting new membership from doing this engagement from folks who came to a session, invited by one organization, learned about another and decided to join or pass along the information to a family member or a friend. And then the other thing I would mention in terms of the metrics for our last round, we had materials translated into 11 different languages. And we had a multilingual listening session where we had 9 languages present. And so it has been a very successful program in terms of our ability to do outreach to our equity priority communities.
Yeah.
Darcy.
Salome, that's great information that you just gave, by the way. Can you share, and you don't do it right now, but maybe in a follow-up, or maybe it's posted on IBR's website already, who the 8 organizations are that were awarded? I'm just thinking about ways that we can support them in the work that they're doing to reach more people.
That is a great question, and it wasn't staged, but yes, we are going to do a follow-up with information about the organizations. We just wanted to wait until all the organizations said yes to the grant and also signed contracts and make sure that we're all on the same page. And so you should be able to see in a follow-up email what are the organizations, what they do, and then we will be posting that information in various places. I believe our newsletters and a couple of other places for members of the public who are curious.
Love it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Salome, I believe that this program's commitment to centering equity and the 8 languages that the program currently translates in, and then how many did you say that were spoken? It's unheard of to have this many languages. So I mean, in terms of equity and being able to reach folks where they are, how many did you say were spoken through the listening sessions? It was more than
so
8.
Over the whole course of the program for the miniature grants, we had 11 languages spoken or translated into. We had one session in particular, which was our multilingual listening session, where we had 9 languages going simultaneously. We did utilize our virtual space to allow for simultaneous interpreting, because one of the things that we were committed to is making sure that folks who were our limited English proficiency and our immigrant and refugee community members who are non-native English speakers were getting information at the same time as English speakers, and making sure we prioritize that so they had equal opportunity and in terms of amount of time to participate. And it was very fun for those of us who were on the logistical standpoint, because it definitely felt like the Tower of Babylon at some points, and I definitely got mixed in hearing different languages that I can speak, but yet trying to convey in English. So it was a very beautiful moment that was kind of like a quilt, very busy, but very beautiful.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because it just feels like it's a pretty incredible moment for the program too. So are there any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Ed. Yes, please.
Is it okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, think the information that you provided was really quite good, and obviously you guys had a good deal of outreach. But I was just curious of a couple of the pictures there. Was either of those pictures taken at the Good in the Hood this summer?
We were at Good in the Hood. Neither of these pictures are from Good in the Hood. They're both actually from Vancouver Pride, but there are a ton of pictures, and I know that we have them in a photo library of ours that you'll probably see a lot of those pictures used throughout other spaces. But if you'd like to see the pictures from Good in the Hood, we could definitely send that to you all.
Not necessarily, I don't necessarily need to see them. I'm just curious about the outreach and particularly what, from a diversity standpoint, because Good in the Hood is not the hood that it used to be, but what kind of output, what kind of participation did you get from particularly minority communities who used to be there? And I know they still go back for that event. Can you just give a quick update on that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so thank you, Ed, for your question. We went to a lot of different specific events. Like we went to a lot of multicultural festivals. We specifically went to events that had historic presence within certain communities and are organized by those community members. And, all the events that we went to, of course, allowed for everyone to come, but we definitely understand that they have a focus. And so when it came to our tables in the places that we were at, a majority of the conversations that we did have were with folks who would likely identify within the equity priority community members. But when it came to counting events for the sake of centering equity priority communities, we defined that or looked at it through the lens of, is this put on by an organization who caters to that community or service to that community, and are the organizers belonging to those communities as well? And so Good in the Hood was definitely one of those that definitely was very multicultural. It did have a really great showing this year, as it did last year, because it was nice and sunny. And I would say some of the more refreshing parts about some of the events we went to, one was called We Outside, that was hosted by The Numbers FM, which is a Black radio station in the Portland area, talking to a lot of families of color, especially at that event. And a lot of people at these events tend to be folks who have not engaged with the program before. And so the fact that we were in spaces where we were hearing that quite a bit from people made us feel really good about that we were in the space that we should be in. But you're correct. Some of these events weren't as diverse as others, but the ones that we did go to that were put on by those communities definitely had a strong showing, and we will consider returning to next year.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Salome. Thanks, Ed. All right, it's time to open up the meeting to public comment. The last message that I received, we have not had anyone interested in providing public comment, but we want to make sure that we are providing space and access for folks to call in or provide us input. So if you could advance to the next slide. Again, to make verbal comment, we would just ask that you dial 1-646-931-3860. A meeting ID is 986-0940-5983, passcode 701376. To raise your hand, dial *9. I will call on participants to provide comment and dial *6 to unmute yourself. Please provide your name and affiliation. We have about 5 or so minutes to provide public comment. Brent, do we have anyone who has expressed any interest?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Can Can we move to the next slide? All right, for those that may be watching, we would invite you to provide us comments at info@interstatebridge.org. Actually, we would ask you to provide comments to the CAG. This actually says CBAG. I think this slide just got moved over, but our organization is the Community Advisory Group, so CAG Public Comment. The phone numbers are the same. Again, just leave a message for the CAG and we will get information over to this advisory group. We do provide information to the Community Advisory Group 2 days prior to the meeting, so they have a chance to review any information that is received. I do want to just give a quick shout out. This is the last meeting that our tech support Brent Hamlin is going to be here for. He is behind the scenes helping to support us. So thank you, Brent, for all of the work that you have done to help make this as smooth as it can possibly be. And in the future, you will likely see behind the scenes Xander helping us. So you should see a seamless transition. But just wanted to thank Brent for the 3 years that he has supported the Community Advisory Group. So thank you, Brent. With that, I'm going to pass it on over to see if my co-facilitator, Johnell, if you have any other comments you want to make before we pass it to our program administrator and our co-chairs to wrap up tonight.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Brent, for, wow, 3 years of just excellent service. For those of you who have had to facilitate meetings that are both in the YouTube space as well as in the virtual space here, it is no easy task. And Brent jumped in there right at the beginning when we were all trying to figure this out as a result of COVID. I just want to thank everyone for your great participation today. I think this has been one of our most active meetings. And so we'll continue to work to bring meaty topics before this body, but just really appreciates everyone's feedback. So Lisa, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thanks, Johnell. All right, I think I'll turn it over to you, Greg, to see if you have any final thoughts that you want to share.
Yeah, once again, thanks, Brent, for your great work over the last 3 years. And thanks to I agree with Johnell. This was just great participation on all the topics tonight. So thanks for your attention and participation. And it was a trick question. You are the community. So there you go. But thank you, everyone.
All right, co-chairs Valenter and co-chair Washington, would you like to wrap us up?
I would just make one comment. I just want to thank Shannon, Megan, and Salome for the presentations. I think the time that you devoted to developing and presenting those presentations encouraged all of us to have kind of robust questions and discussion, which is one of the goals. So I just want to thank all of you as well as all the behind the scenes people and leadership. It truly, I know it takes a ton of work to bring these to fruition, but it matters. So thank you all. Ed, did you have anything you wanted to, parting thoughts?
I will mirror everything that Lynn said. That's an easy way to do it. So I stand with her. Great job. Wonderful job by everybody. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for the time this evening. We appreciate it and look forward to seeing you next month. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.
And Xander, you can just go ahead and click end meeting for all.